Playing Return to Grace had me thinking back to when so-called walking simulators were still a divisive topic. Video games like Dear Esther, Gone Home, or Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, in which the narrative, characters, atmosphere, and audiovisual experience take precedence over mechanical complexity. On one hand, it's a design that benefits Return to Grace, making for an immersive experience focused on the narrative payoff. On the other, I was reminded of just how fine a line this genre walks between compelling and boring, if the pacing and length are even slightly off the mark. Return to Grace is a first-person narrative adventure that places you in the environmental suit of Adi Ito, an archaeologist exploring a frozen and stormy Ganymede in 3820 AD, searching for an ancient AI, Grace, held in godlike reverence. She was an AI that led humanity into a golden age of peace and expansion across the solar system, before her disappearance, 1,000 years before, triggered a new dark age with many technological innovations and record-keeping lost. This is a genre that thrives on strong storytelling, and Return to Grace, despite retreading some familiar ideas, offers up an intriguing setting, quirky cast, and briskly paced mystery to unravel, along with plenty of optional environmental storytelling and world-building for those who want it. Times have clearly changed since Grace was the caretaker of humanity. Travel throughout the solar system is no longer commonplace, as Adi has taken a risky 300-day journey to get to Ganymede. It's also a one-way trip, but she claims everything of value to her on Earth is gone. Record-keeping from 1,000 years prior is so limited, she had to rely on centuries of oral history to pinpoint the location. As a result, even before I appreciated the divergent nature of the narrative, I was already sold on the setting, and I wanted to discover more about its take on the future of humanity. Thankfully, that future history element is integral to the present investigation-based story. It comes up when Adi comments on the technology she witnesses in the spire, and often features in her conversations with an entertaining selection of AI personalities she discovers on her journey. You see, shortly after arrival, she awakens Logic, who, alongside Control and Empathy, form core components of Grace's identity. The problem is they're old backups that have little knowledge of what led to Grace's shutdown, what happened to the people who maintained the spire, or even how her interactions with humanity evolved over time. What they do have is unique personalities, system permissions, and thoughts on how Adi should proceed. As she pushes on, they create amusing hybrid personalities, for whom Adi picks some choice names, that'll help her circumvent new obstacles. It's not obvious at first, but Return to Grace's most significant narrative mechanic is how it tracks your decisions. The consequences can feel a little rushed given the 3 to 4 hour runtime, but there are a few key moments when Adi can push forward instead of explore, take risky shortcuts instead of a safer path, or allow the AI to perform certain tasks for her. These decisions feed into evolving AI responses, and lead to minor ending variations that all felt appropriate given my choices. Return to Grace's biggest issue, and this is one shared by all games in the genre, is what you're doing mechanically is rarely that engaging. You explore and move at whatever pace the game dictates. You sit around listening to lengthy conversations that block your ability to interact with anything until they're finished. You push or mash a single button to trigger scripted traversal moves or optional commentary, and sometimes you engage in pattern or memory-based puzzles that require little mental effort. Crossing balance beams, briefly controlling a crane, and melting ice with a flamethrower is about as wild as it gets. Thankfully, Return to Grace's brisk runtime, coupled with some choice comments from the AI if you do get stuck, makes this less of an issue, and the compelling world had me hacking every door and audio log I could find for more details. That said, it didn't make the process of trudging around larger areas, repeating door code inputs, or twirling Adi's glove to line up sync points a dozen times feel any less repetitive or tedious. Wrapping up, Return to Grace's brevity and strong storytelling are its saving grace. It kept me hooked over 2 evening sessions, and only started ruminating on the weaker elements just before the credits rolled. I wanted to find out more about past events by sifting through the deserted spire. I wanted to hear every one of Adi's comments on the current state of humanity, and I was fascinated by the AI personalities and their attempt to dissect her motivation. There were even a few moments that had me starting to doubt whether Adi's quest was misguided or not. As for who this is for, I'd say if you're in the mood for a brisk, immersive, thought-provoking adventure with a little divergent narrative, and you can accept the somewhat limited, repetitive gameplay loop, you might find Return to Grace a short but entertaining adventure, and it's a great addition to the genre. If you've got this far, please consider giving the video a like and maybe subscribing to our channel as it helps us grow.